Here we are on day 42. Today's math topic is going to be circles. We've worked with quadrilaterals, which are four-sided figures, and then we worked with triangles, three-sided figures, and now we're going to go to one-sided plane figures. One-sided circle has one side, doesn't it? Of course, the side of a circle is curved round. Okay, first we're going to look at our math windows, as we like to start on these. They're a good review. Sometimes it's a review of past skills. Sometimes it's a look at skills that are coming up. Okay, this one is from the past, I think. 10 burgers cost $60. What will 15 burgers cost? This is a classic one where you could do ratios. You're talking about burgers versus their cost. And then you're asking again about burgers. So we'll put burgers on top. 10 burgers cost $60. Of course, I hope you tried to figure this one out yourself. And it doesn't mean you had to do ratios. I'll show you a way that it's done without ratios after we do this solution. Okay, that's a ratio, 10 to 60. 10 burgers cost $60. That equals 15 burgers. Now, the thing to remember is that if you put burgers on top, then this burgers must go on top also. The burgers are on top, the money's on the bottom. So I'm going to put X down here. And you can solve this the way we usually try to solve for a variable. We want to get the X on top, so we have to multiply by whatever. Or you can just, with ratios, you can remember that it comes down to cross multiplying. So you get 10 times X equals 60 times 15. You want to solve for X, so what do? Well, you want 1X, so you divide by 10. But if you divide that side by 10, you have to divide this side by 10. So you get 60 times 15 divided by 10. You put that in your calculator, what does that give you? 90? Now, does that make sense? Well, if 10 burgers cost around $60, 15 burgers cost about 90. That sounds basically right. Okay. Now, another way to do this, suppose you don't remember ratios and you get nervous. Well, what are ratios? I can't remember how to do that. You just pretend you were going to buy burgers and it said 10 burgers are 60 and you wanted to buy 15. You could think, how much does one burger cost? 60 divided by 10 would give you the cost of one burger. 60 divided by 10 means each burger costs $6. And you want 15 burgers. How do you find the cost of 15 burgers? If each one is 6, you multiply 6 times 15. And that would give you $90. Just using your common sense. Pretend it's a real world problem. And often you can solve them once you think of them as a real problem you really face in the real world. Okay, here's more practice with our numbers. The mean, the median, and the mode. 3 words that begin with M. The way I remember it, again, is the meanest one is the hardest one. This is the mean. It also means average. The mean means average. Okay, we'll do that last. Median is the one in the middle when they're in order. So you got to put them in order first. So what do we got? We got a 12, a 16. Those are the only ones less than 20. Then we got what? 23. Nothing smaller. Okay. 23, 24, 23, 24. There's a 26, 28, 28, 26, 28. Oh. So we get 2 26s and 3 28s. How many altogether? That's important. There's 9 altogether. So the one in the middle should be the fifth. 4 on this side, 4 on that side, and 1 in the middle. The one in the middle is 26. That's the median. The number in the middle when you put them all in order. If there's 2 in the middle, if there's an even number of numbers, there's 2 in the middle, you take the average of those 2, you add them together, divide by 2. But there's only 1 in the middle because 9 is an odd number. There's 9 of them. The mode is the one that occurs most often. 2 26s, but 3 28, so that makes 28 the mode. Okay, the average, the mean. What do? You want a number that tells you balances all these numbers. So it should somewhere be over here, but it doesn't have to be exactly one of these numbers. What do? You add up all the numbers, and then you divide by how many numbers there are. So you add them all up, and you're going to divide by 9. If you put that in your calculator, adding them all up and dividing by 9, I got 23.44, which is actually one of the smaller, just above the small, but these are really small, so they pull the average down to 23 almost. Moving on. A big word problem. 10 artists have entered an art show. There are 3 prizes to be awarded in the art show. First prize, second prize, and third prize. How many different ways could these prizes be awarded amongst 10 artists? Wow. So let's say you call the 10 artists A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. 10 artists, right? So let's say first prize. How many different people can get first prize? Well, 10 different people can get first prize. So let's say you put 1 in there. Let's say G got first prize, right? How many different people can get second prize? Well, G can't get second prize because they're only entered 1 time. So that leaves 9 artists. There's 9 different artists that could be here. So I'm going to multiply 10 times 9 because there's 10 different artists can be here, and each of those can have 9 paired with them. So right away you have 90 pairs. But each of those pairs can have the third place winner with them. And how many are left to get the third place? Well, if you have G and B, there's 8 left. So if G comes in first and B comes in second, there's still 8 more combinations because there could be 8 different people in third. So to get the total amount of combinations, instead of it being G first, you could have A first and any of the combinations. So you end up multiplying 10 times 9 times 8. If you do that, you get 720. That's the solution. Now, there's another kind of problem where they don't care who comes in first, who comes in second, who comes in third. They say there's 10 artists and we're giving 3 prizes away. How many different combinations? In other words, let's say the prizes are all equal and we're going to give 3 prizes. How many different combinations? Well, then you would still have 10 times 9 times 8. But since the order doesn't matter, you're going to count a lot of them twice. Like you might have A, B, C, C, B, A, B, A, C. You have to divide by 3 times 2 times 1. You have to divide by that. But we're not doing that kind of problem because here it did matter. There is no more, sweetie. I'll bring you some yogurt in a little bit. Go watch TV and I'll come back, okay? That's the bad girl. Say hello. Say hello over here. Adelina, get over here. Come back. Hey, you little brat. Man, she's shy. Not really. She's not shy at all. Okay, we're going on. Let me see if I can get this right here. I can't get it back in the spot. There we are. Okay. Get my focus back. Okay. At the end of baseball season, 5% of the children enrolled in a local youth baseball program will be chosen to play in the state tournament. If 12 children will be chosen to play in the state tournament, how many children are enrolled in the program? So they pick 5% of the kids. 5% of the total, not 5% of 12, 5% of all the kids in the program. So I'm going to say T. 5% of T, the total, that's going to be equal to 12. 5% of the total kids in the program are going to be enrolled, and there are 12 children chosen to play in the tournament, right? are going to be playing the tournament. 12 are chosen. So I know 5% of t is 12. Remember I said of means multiply? So you're going to multiply by 5%, but we can't multiply by percent. We use 0.05. You move the decimal point 2 places because 5% is 500ths, and that's 500ths, times the total equals 12. We want to find the total. What do we have to do to get to t? We have to make this 1t, so we have to divide by 0.05. That'll give us t. So that means we have to divide 12 by 0.05. So this ends up being dividing. 12 divided by 0.05. If you do that in your calculator, what do you get? I think I got 240. Is that one there? Yes, it is. It's C, 240. Okay? Okay, so we're going to be moving on to our topic of the day, which is circles. Circles. We've talked about quadrilaterals. We've talked about triangles. Today we're talking about circles. Circles have a point in the middle, and all these other points that form the circle are the same distance from that middle point. So if you take a point and you find all the points that are the same distance from that point, it makes a circle. Anyway, read this page about circles. Okay, it's very informative, and it tells you some important things. Two of the most important things in a circle are the measurements called the diameter and the radius. And they're related. Diameter is a line drawn through the center. It must go through the center. It is the distance across the circle. How far across the circle? I think more important is the radius. The radius is the distance from the center point to the circle, to the outside. That's how the circle is formed, by finding points that are of the same radius, the same distance from the center. How are they related? Well, if you put two radiuses together, well, it makes the diameter. Diameter is equal to 2 radiuses. Oh, that's important to remember. Okay. I won't touch your perfume. Go ahead, get out of here. Okay, so what are the other important things we want to know about a circle? Well, we want to know how far it is to get all the way around the circle. That's kind of like the perimeter, but we don't use the word perimeter when we're dealing with circles. We use the special word circumference. It's the distance around the outside of a circle. There's many problems that use that, like thinking again about fences or anything that involves how you want to know how far you're going around a circle. Like if you're walking around a circle, for instance, a circular track. Anyway, if you took this diameter and you could bend it, and let's say you started here and you bent the diameter and it went all the way over to about here, and then you took another diameter and bent it and went all the way over to about here, and then you took a third one, you bent it and would go all the way almost back to where you started, just short of where you started. No matter how big the circle is, it always works out that way. If you take the diameter, it takes a little more than 3 diameters to make it all the way around. In fact, it takes 3.1415, and it goes on and on. There's digits. And this special value that works for all circles, we give it a name, we call it pi. That's what pi is, a little more than 3. So the circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. Pi times the diameter is equal to the circumference. Okay? Now, the other thing we wanted to do with the triangles and quadrilaterals was figure out the area. Now, the area is a little more complicated. Here's your circumference, pi times the diameter. Or, if you're using radius, you take 2 radiuses. That's the diameter, right, times pi. So 2 pi r is also the circumference, right? Because it's just 2 radiuses. That's the diameter. The area, it says, is equal to pi times the radius squared. So if you think of a circle, Here's the radius, right? If you squared the radius, that's really finding the area of a square like this that has the radius as a side, right? And it's saying if you take 3 of these squares, it would fill in the inside of the circle. How do they figure that out? I don't know. There's some proof for how do they figure it out. But you just got to learn this. Pi times the radius squared is the area of a triangle. Okay, and so the rest of this lesson is going to be done using that formula. The formulas for circumference and the formulas for areas. Read through this page. Make sure you understand it. They do a good explanation, so you should always be reading through these explanation pages. And now we're going to go on to the problems. We're not going to be doing all of them, as you can imagine, because I'm not going to be doing all of them, because once you start doing them, you see that they're all kind of the same. It just involves knowing what numbers you're going to be multiplying.
Hey, Dad, I can do it.
Okay.
Do it.
What do you want to do? Okay, we're gonna. Okay, here we are on page 7 of 9. Circles practice. Find the area and circumference for each circle described below. Use pi equals to 3.14. Round your answer to the nearest 10th place. So they give us a diagram. They're showing us the radius, right? Not the diameter. And they're asking for the circumference in the area. Okay, so let's make this a little bigger. Circumference and area. Remembering that this is the radius. From the middle to the outside is the radius, is the smaller one. The circumference. The formula I always remember for the circumference is pi times the diameter. But we want the radius, so we want half of the diameter. I mean, we want two radiuses to make the diameter. So we're going to go 2 times 10, that gives us the diameter, times pi. 2 times 10 times pi. Now they said use 3.14. Got my 1. 3.14. If you put that in your calculator, what do you get? You should be trying these beforehand if you know how to do it. 62.8. And what's the unit? Inches. Okay. Now, one thing I want to show you on my calculator. So I'm going to go to my calculator. Okay. Here's my calculator. So I could do 10 times pi, which is 2, I said, right? Because I want 20 actually. I want the diameter, times 3.14 is pi, and that gives me 62.8. But I could have done this. I could have done my 10 times 2, 10 times 2 times. A lot of calculators will have a symbol for pi, and there it is. Can you see it there? Pi. I'm going to put pi, that symbol. Now that'll be more exact. See, now I have my pi up there, and now the answer is 62.83. 62 point, still rounds to 62.8, but pi, they use a much greater approximation, 3.1415, and it goes on and on. By the way, it doesn't end. It's an infinite number of digits in pi. Anyway, you can use pi, but they asked you to use 3.14, so my answers are going to be done using 3.14. Okay, the area. How do you find the area? Pi r squared, where r is the radius. Well, r is 10. R squared is 10 times 10, 100 pi. If you put that in your calculator, well, since you're using 3.14, your answer will come out 314. If you had used pi, it would actually come out 314.1 is more exact. But they just gave it, and so it would come out 314.0 if you use 3.14. Okay? Number 5. Same thing. They give you the diameter this time, 28 kilometers. By the way, the unit on this would be inches squared, or square inches. 314 square inches. Sometimes they say it the other way, inches squared. Circumference, again, diameter times pi. 28 times pi. 28 times 3.14. Put that in your calculator. 88.2 kilometers. The area, you want the radius. You want half of that. So you could do 0.8 times 28. Or if you know your numbers, you could just say 14. 14 times, what do you have to do with the radius? You have to square it. So you have to do 14 times 14. And then times pi. Okay? 14 times 14 times pi. And that gave me 615.44. And that's square kilometers. Number 9. 8 is the radius. For the circumference, I like to use the diameter, which is 2 times 8, or 2 radiuses. 16 times pi would give you the circumference. And what did I get for that? 50.24. Is that about right? Well, 3 times 16 is 48. And pi is a little bit bigger. That's a little bigger. So that sounds great. Miles. Then area, you want to square the radius. So it's 8 squared is 64. 8 squared times pi. Or pi times 8 squared, doesn't matter. Anyway, if you multiply 8 times 3.14, I don't know if I did that one. I forgot to do that one. Anyway, let's see. What does it come out about? 64 times... Oh, it comes out about 200 or something. Right? I had that somewhere, but I don't see it. Somewhere around 200 anyway. You can work these on your own. Sometimes they give you the radius. Sometimes they give you the diameter. Just remember there's 2 radiuses for a diameter. Circumference is 2 radiuses times pi. The area is the pi squared. Don't square this because you want the radius squared. So you have to take half of that 9 and square it. Here's the radius, 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 diameter. Take half of that to get your radius when you're squaring, okay? You can work those on your own. The answers, of course, are all in the back. Going on. Let's see how much a hard time is running here. Oh, we're okay. Find the area and circumference using the radius or diameter listed. Use pi equals 3.14. This is really the same as this, but without the picture. Radius, radius. Make sure you know which one you're using, the radius or the diameter. Radius, radius. Radius, 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 radius. They only gave the radius every time. So you just got to be careful when you do your circumference that you take 2 of those. Because it's diameter times the pi. Find the radius. Now this is a little trickier. This one you're working backwards. You're starting with the circumference. And you have to find the radius. So remember, circumference is equal to pi times 2 radiuses, right? Times the diameter, which is 2 radiuses. So they're giving you 62.8 is equal to pi, 2 pi, I'll put the 2 in front, 2 pi r. We want to find the radius. How are we going to get the radius? Divide by 2 pi. But if you divide that by 2 pi, you have to divide this by 2 pi. So you're going to end up doing some division. Just be careful. When you do 62 divided by 8 on your calculator, You don't want to do 62 divided by 2 times pi. If you do that, it's going to mess up your answer. So let's look at that one. How do you do 62.8 pi on your calculator divided by 62.8 divided by 2 pi? So let's see. We're going to clear. We're going to start with 62.8 divided by, did I hit divide by? Divide by 2. And I'm not going to put times pi, even though it's 2 pi. I'm going to divide again by pi, 3.14. And that gives me 10 as an answer. Well, that's a nice answer. Is that the right? I don't know if I did that right. Okay. Yeah, it should be about 10. Okay, so let me try this. We'll try it a different way. I'm going to start with 62.8. And I'm going to divide by, this time though, I'm going to use a parentheses. I'm going to divide by, now I'm going to do multiply. I'm going to divide by 2 times pi, 3.14. I'm first multiplying 2 times 3.14, and then I'm going to divide. I have to put my end of my thing. And look, comes up with 10 again. I use parentheses, so I would multiply those first and then divide. You got to be careful when using a calculator. You don't want to put divide by 2 times 3.14 without the parentheses. You could put divide by 2 and divide by 3.14. That would also give you 10. Anyway, you can work more of these on your own. These all are kind of the same way. You start with your circumference, and you're going to end up dividing by 2 pi, as you did here. These are all the same. Number 25 and 26 are different, though. This time they give you the area. Okay, how would you do that? Well, the area, remember, area is equal to pi times r squared. So to get the radius given the area, what are you going to do? Well, you want just r. How do you get this equation down to just r? Well, let's divide by pi first to get rid of pi. So you have the area divided by pi, because you have to divide both sides, equals the radius squared. How do you get the radius? You have to take the square root of r squared. If you take the square root of r times r, you end up with r. So I'm going to take the square root of r squared, because that's r. But that means I have to take the square root of this too. The square root of a divided by pi. That's what I got to do. So let's try it here. 201. I want to take 201.1, 201.1, and divide it by pi. And then I want to take the square root. So how would I do that on my calculator? Okay, let's get a little smaller here so I can see a little better. Okay, so first of all, I have to clear. I don't even want to start yet. What I want to do is I want to actually put my square root sign first. Square root. Then I'm going to put parentheses. Parentheses, numbers, 201.1 divided by pi, 3.14. Then I have to put my end of parentheses. So I'm going to take 201.1, the area, and divide it by pi, and then take the square root of that. And what does it come out to be? 8.0, almost exactly 8. So this one would be 8. Okay. Same thing here. They give you the area. So you want to divide the area by pi, and then take the square root, because that'll give you r. Area is equal to pi r squared. Area divided by pi is equal to r squared. R is equal to the square root of the area divided by pi. Do you have to remember that equation? No. You just start with this and you work your way to this. Okay, if you put that one in here, let's try that one. Okay, we're going to clear it. what is it, 78.5? 78.5. I forgot I want to take the square root first. So I'm going to put the square root 78.5 divided by 3.14 divided by pi. I want my end of the, what was that? How do you get this back? You want this thing. And what does that give you? I gotta go back to my equal sign. Equals that expression. Hey, what happened to the parentheses? It didn't get that one. Okay, we're gonna do it again. Square root, parentheses. What happened to it? It got lost. 78.5 divided by 3.14. End of parentheses. 5 is the answer. Okay. 5 for this one. 5 squared is 25 times 3 is about 75. So that sounds about right. Okay. Word problems. How are we doing on time here? 14. Huh? May have to break this into 2. Okay. If workers lay a tile border around the edge of a fountain, shown in the diagram, how many feet long will the border be to the nearest foot? So they put a tile border around the edge. It's going around the edge. It's a circle. It's the circumference, the distance around the edge. 12 is the diameter. How do you find that distance around? Well, that's the circumference. It's just the diameter times pi. 12 times 3.14. 12 times 3 is 36. But it's got to be a little bit bigger because it's 3.14. That I think C would be right. You can put it in your calculator, though. 12 times 3.14 to see if it comes closer to 38. I imagine so. 28. Which of the following expressions could be used to find the area of the bottom of the surface of the fountain? How much fills in the fountain there on the bottom? Like if you wanted to paint the bottom or put tiles on the bottom. Okay, so what's that going to be? Pi times the radius squared is the area. Well, we know the diameter is 12. What's the radius? Half of that, 6. Diameter is 12, so the radius is going to be 6, right? 6 squared is 36. So you want 36 times pi. There it is right up there. This is diameter times pi. We want half of the diameter, 6, and we have to square it. 6 times 6 is 36. Number 29, the radius of a circle. The radius of a circle is 6.5 centimeters. What is the diameter of the circle in centimeters? Well, if the radius is 6.5, isn't the diameter just 2 radiuses? 6.5 times 2. 2 times 6 is 12, and you get 2 halves is 1 more. 13. You can do 2 times 6.5 in your calculator, but it's going to come out 13. Last one. Oh, is this the last one? I don't know. On the target below, the 5 and 10-inch point bands are each 2 inches wide, and the inner circle has a diameter of 2 inches. To the nearest inch, what is the outer circumference of the 10-point band? So here's the 10-point band. This one here. If you throw a dart there, you get 10 points. And there's 2 circles, the one on the inside and the one on the outside. They'd ask for the outer circumference. They want this circle right there. That's the one they're talking about. It's on the 10-point band. These are 10 points, and it's the outer one. So how do you figure out circumference? Diameter times pi. We want pi times the diameter. So we got to figure out the diameter. Now it said the inner circle, the 25 point, is 2 inches wide. The inner circle, that's 2 inches. And each band is 2 inches wide. That means it's 2 inches there, but you also need this over here because you want a diameter going right through. So you get a 2 there, a 2 in the middle, and a 2 there. 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. The diameter is 6, and you want the circumference. So you want 6 times pi. Pi is 3, a little more than 3, so it's going to be 6 times 3, 18. It's going to be a little bit more than 18. Which answer is right? Well, you can put in your calculator 6 times 3.14, but just estimating you can get 19 is the only answer that makes sense. 6 times 3 is 18, so it has to be a little bit bigger. And that's it. That's it for lesson 42.